Imagine being arrested for laughing. Not because you were being disruptive, not because you were mocking someone in power, but simply because your body refused to stop. You couldn't eat, you couldn't sleep, you couldn't breathe properly, and the authorities had no idea what to do with you except lock you away and hope it passed. That is exactly what happened to hundreds of people in East Africa in 1962. And the terrifying part, nobody laughed because anything was funny. This is the story of the Tanganyika laughter epidemic, one of the most bizarre, most documented, and most misunderstood mass hysteria events in all of human history. And what it reveals about the human brain will make you question everything you think you know about self-control. On the 28th of January, 1962, three girls at a boarding school in the small village of Kashasha on the western shore of Lake Victoria, in what was then Tanganyika, now part of Tanzania, started laughing. That sentence sounds harmless, maybe even pleasant. But what followed those three girls was anything but. The laughter spread, not politely, not gradually, but like a wildfire through dry grass. Within days, 95 of the 159 students at the Kashasha Girls' School had been overtaken by uncontrollable fits of laughter and crying. The episodes lasted anywhere from a few minutes to a staggering 16 days per individual. Students were unable to concentrate. Teachers were helpless. The school had no choice. On the 18th of March, 1962, authorities shut it down completely. But closing the school didn't contain the outbreak. When students returned to their home villages, they brought something invisible with them. The laughter followed. By June, the epidemic had spread to the village of Nshamba, infecting dozens of people, many of them relatives of the original Kashasha students. Another school, the Ramasubi Girls Middle School, reported outbreaks among its students. Then a third school in Bukoba, then a fourth. Across the region, over 1,000 people were ultimately affected. 14 schools were forced to close over a period of roughly 18 months. Let that number settle in. 14 schools, 18 months, over 1,000 victims, all from laughter that nobody could explain and nobody could stop. Now, before we go further, if you find this story as jaw-dropping as we do, hit that like button and subscribe. This channel is dedicated to uncovering the most extraordinary moments in human history that most people never hear about. Don't miss what's coming next. So what was actually happening? This is where the science becomes deeply fascinating and more than a little unsettling. The medical teams that investigated the Kashasha epidemic could find no viral or bacterial cause, no toxin in the water or food, no shared physical illness whatsoever. What they were witnessing was something the modern world now calls mass psychogenic illness, or in older terminology, mass hysteria. The human brain, particularly under conditions of severe stress, social pressure, or collective anxiety, can generate real, physical, involuntary symptoms, spreading them from person to person not through germs, but through observation and suggestion alone. The laughter wasn't voluntary, the crying wasn't emotional. These were the body's stress responses going catastrophically haywire in a socially contagious way. And the context matters enormously here. 1962 was a historically volatile year for Tanganyika. The country had only achieved independence from British colonial rule on the 9th of December, 1961, just weeks before the outbreak began. The boarding school environment was already one of rigid discipline, high academic pressure, and significant cultural tension between traditional life and a rapidly changing political world. The students were navigating enormous uncertainty about their futures, their identities, and their nation. Their bodies, researchers believe, found a release valve, a terrible, involuntary, contagious one. One of the most striking things about the Tanganyika epidemic is what it tells us about the power of social contagion. Dr. Christian Hempelman, a researcher who studied the event extensively, noted that the laughter itself was almost certainly a symptom of anxiety rather than any form of joy. Victims reported feeling genuinely distressed during their episodes. Some experienced pain, some fainted, some became temporarily unable to walk. The laughter was, in every meaningful sense, an illness, and it was absolutely real. What spread between individuals was not a germ, but a signal, a behavioral cue that the nervous system interpreted as danger-worthy, triggering its own cascade of responses. The more people witnessed the laughter, the more vulnerable they became to it, particularly if they shared the same social anxieties, the same cultural pressures, and the same confined environment. The epidemic formally faded by late 1963, though smaller waves continued to ripple through the region for some time. No deaths were ever directly attributed to the outbreak, though the disruption to education and daily life was severe and real. The schools that closed remained shut for months, affecting thousands of students' academic progress during an already turbulent period in their nation's history. What the Tanganyika laughter epidemic leaves us with is a profound and humbling question. How much control do we truly have over our own bodies and minds? We assume that our reactions, our emotions, and our physical responses belong to us individually. But this event demonstrated, in extraordinary fashion, that human beings are social creatures at the deepest neurological level. We are wired to mirror, to synchronize, and sometimes to catch what those around us are experiencing, whether we want to or not. The laughter in Kashasha was not funny. It was a signal, a collective scream from people under unbearable pressure, wearing the mask of something that looked, from the outside, almost absurd. That is perhaps the most haunting truth of all. The world saw children laughing and didn't understand that they were suffering. History is full of moments like this, moments that look strange on the surface, but underneath reveal something deeply, uncomfortably human. That's what this channel is here to explore. Subscribe right now so you never miss another story that changes how you see the world. Drop a comment below and tell us, had you ever heard of the Tanganyika laughter epidemic before today? We read every single one.